Man, it looks like we're up to 23 attendees. Going to be a good show.
Ready another minute, get to the top of the hour. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the Construct XChiyoda use case, AWP for engineering and procurement. This is about the vision and commitment from Chiyoda to create a new AWP engineering and procurement solutions that will not only benefit Chiyoda as an AWP practitioner and AWP partner, but also benefit the EPC industry. Along with what Annabella Martin and team mentioned this earlier about materials management, this is also about connecting data across the supply chain. So a little bit about the journey that started in 2018 is going to be part of the story here. Before we get into it, let me advance the slide here. I want to introduce all our panelists today, or participants. One is Dr. Ted Blackman, founder of the Jovian Ventures Network, which all these organizations are a part of. I am Fernando Espana, president of Construct X. We also have with us Ryan Gerzier, the president and CIO of Workbox. Amin Rafe, the product manager of Workbox, and Aaron Wortman, the director of innovation at Workbox. All came together with Chiyoda to deliver a really amazing solution that we'd like, hopefully you will also appreciate here. So I'd like to say a little bit about Chiyoda. I mean, they were heavily involved in this. So Chiyoda, if you don't know, is a corporation, is a global engineering company specializing in oil and gas midstream for gas processing and LNG, downstream refinery and petrochemical facilities design and construction. They're headquartered in Yokohama, Japan, with engineering offices across the globe, and they have a commanding share of the market. And here is just the statistics on that shows Chiyoda's share of the LNG market alone, not including the other sectors it specializes in. So pretty much in every continent, obviously adopting EWP and or E&P practice and bettering their E&P practice is pretty significant, and we will see a lot of great things coming out of this effort. So a little bit about the timeline of where all this came together and why the E&P efforts are so important. Starting in actually a couple of years ago, got a real key focus. So most of you have seen this type of timeline before, and so I'll summarize and focus on the new components. This timeline introduces how we've developed AWP methodologies over the last 20 years, plus years, and what the source of the methodology is. So here back in the late 90s, 3D color coding of models became popular, and this paved the way for the introduction of more 4D concepts in construction programs, allowing for groups to experiment with planning and developing these methods of work packaging using visual tools. And then, of course, a lot of folks are used to seeing the Syncrude UE1 project as a prime example, and one of the first to do this. From 1996 to about the 2000s, the project took several lean planning concepts, such as Last Planner, and extended them to work best with the industrial construction methodologies. And the lessons learned from this project became the foundation for the first COA work-based planning model, established in 2001. In that time period, several tools were developed that started to fill the gaps of work packaging and development and production. And as they started to mature, so did the AWP methodology. And this is true today, and this use case will be an example of that. So lots of different systems. Also proud to say that in 2012, in this case, Dr. Ted Blackman launches Construct X. I joined a couple years after that. And in 2013, CII launches RT319, the research group which was intent on gathering use case studies to identify the AWP methodology was working, and identified not only was it working, it was working so well that they declared it a best practice in 2015. And really, this is kind of where the Chiyoda story begins. Their journey started when they attended the 2018 AWP conference, believe it or not, and within months began working with us with Construct X to develop an E&P solution to address the many engineering and procurement issues they were experiencing, and to increase their AWP capability and their value as an E&P partner. So in 2019, needed to address challenges such as tag and bomb loading automation validation. We'll speak more about that. Scalability for plant matrix, institute tracking of IWPs and CWP constraints against engineering procurement for yard and site, and they began to map out their plan to address this opportunity. And here's a picture of a workshop down here that really drives that. And at the same time, and we're going to talk about the capability matrix. In 2019, we also Construct X introduced the capability matrix to CII, which will be a foundational aspect of how this was created by using that. And I know that Eric brought that up earlier today. And also we brought in the concept of digital twins or digital threads and templates into the industry because of the power that and the way that they are able to drive robust data integration solutions, which is also part of this story. So, with that, lately that Chiyoda made this announcement of its partnership with Workbox in helping create this solution developed over several years, a couple of years here, 2018 to 2021, actually so far, and it's still going, that fulfills that mission to develop the E&P solution that will drive Chiyoda projects. Finally, we know collectively, and especially in the Jovian Venture Network, with folks like Chiyoda, working on the next generation of data-enabled holistic AWP plus lean project delivery solutions that will accelerate across industry. You'll hear words like production control and things like that as part of the solution sets that we're working on. So anyway, the whole idea is always progressing and never stopping. So with that, one thing I would like to point out, and the industry up until about 2020, the big focus was on AWP automation, or primarily around IWPs and CWPs and path of construction. EWPs and PWPs, became hot topics. But what we want to show you is that, hey, there's our places to go. Lots of innovation left that we need to pursue in the engineering and procurement world, right? So I'm going to this is going to be a little bit of the story, and I'm going to now pass it over to Dr. Ted Blackman.
Well, thank you, Fernando. And you're one of the, as I transitioned out of NASA in the late 1990s into the world of construction, one of the first people I met was yourself, and I think you remember that time, and linking up with the Lean Construction Institute and how can we apply production science principles in terms of production control right at the work phase that evolved into what AWP's become. But kind of thinking about, okay, the path of engineering doesn't align with the path of construction. That's a reality, and finding the right partnership and with the right mindset of we're not looking to use AWP to charge the project more money, but we want to be the competitive and be the winner. And I really have enjoyed the partnership that we've been able to forge with Chiyoda on how can we apply and make the EP use case for AWP strong. And I won't go into the details, but I would just substantiate that we held a multi-day workshop in Yokohama, and utilizing the CII tool, it also started becoming clear that if we look at what the benefits shouldn't just drive towards construction and the owner and the end project, but how can the AWP principles be applied better into engineering? And a lot of the capabilities suddenly became, we need to think differently, think outside the box, and what's at heart for having an engineering procurement organization, not just deliver according to some requirements, but do it in a smart way and also gain benefits from it. And we identified over 13 major areas of E&P delivery improvements, and we haven't even touched all of them, let alone just a handful. So what we're going to discuss going forward was what surfaced as some of the top priority ones where the biggest bang for the buck was felt could be applied. And that's what's now evolved over a multi-year journey in the engineering and procurement participation in AWP. But it was just to emphasize, it was an outstanding use of that capability and maturity model that's been supplied to CII. And for those who are looking for practical tools that they can use, I'd strongly suggest to get a copy of it. Reach out to us if you don't have it through CII. It's a tool that we've put together and continue to evolve along with efforts within CII. So very excited about that. Next slide, Fernando. And I'm actually hoping I don't do a lot of the talking here. So, having a trip to Japan and going to Mount Fuji became an inspiration, literally. It snowed during the Cherry Blossom Festival, where there was a bit of an aha of, you can't do everything at once in this capability maturity model. Where do we get started? And I've got to give hats off to John Fish. For those of you who don't know, he's been certainly been an inspiration and is without knowing it, a mentor to me in terms of just his engagement with CII and the Breakthrough Strategy Committee that formed FIATech and then ultimately led to the first work-based planning solutions developed with ConstructSim and OpSim. But it was the last time I was at a conference pre-COVID, and I haven't been at a conference for a while, where John sat through and just made the point so clear that, look, what we're asking, often what's going into contract requirements, like, is that really smart what we're asking the engineers to do? I mean, if it's, bundling a set of PDF documents with a cover sheet called an EWP and trying to hand them over one at a time, that's not the way engineering works. And that wasn't the intent as we, embarked upon journeys together in the AWP community that really dated all the way back to those early 2000 days that evolved. There's got to be a better way of doing it. And also, I mean, if you're, you should be able to, and it's not just the 3D model. There's other engineering data sets, and by involving construction and defining requirements, this idea that it's going to cost more money to do engineering, I really take that to a point that I believe, we need to just realize it doesn't have to be that way. And ultimately, delivery of paper-based EWPs, bundling PDFs, and having poorly attributed, and even if it is attributed, putting a CWP manually in a 3D model adds more engineering effort, and there's different ways to do it. And so what's advanced is what I'll call a smart way to do digitally driven EWPs. And even though there's something now fully in place, ready to expand beyond just the first set of the use cases identified, there's so much more ground to cover as well. And with that, my phone's ringing. And I'd like to call in Aaron Wertman. Ring, ring. Aaron, introduce yourself. Give a little bit of perspective on this picture.
Yeah, some of you, I see the attendee list. Some of you have worked with me in the past and know me from my involvement with the CBA and some other of the industry orgs, or seen me at a conference in the past. But I wanted to start by, emphasizing a little bit of the challenge from what I've seen, because I have kind of been in the background, kind of quietly observing and working with, very few of you over the last, 8 years that I've been a part of the organization with Ted. So let me start, kind of my first impression. Like, when AWP was first introduced to me, my first response was, wait, you mean this isn't really done already? The concept of breaking down silos, bringing the right people in the room or the conversation early in the project to deliver the right things, i.e. drawings, materials, resources, equipment, to the right people, appropriate crews and contractors at the right time. It just seemed like a no-brainer. But we all know it's not that easy. We don't just snap our fingers and boom, we're doing AWP, even though we know of plenty of situations where apparently said company X must think this is true, because nod the head, yes, Mr. Owner, of course we do AWP, because we want to get that contract. Not to be negative or cynical, but I've sat back and listened to these conferences and summits and heard the theory like all of you, and seen and been a part of some of these great success stories. But my challenge, and sort of the challenge that I've seen, is can we look around and actually say that any of the organizations here have really fully embraced AWP? And I don't say this in light of negativity, but rather in some healthy skepticism. From an engineering and procurement perspective, who's the one that's really going to commit and provide the data, instead of tossing some PDF list over the fence when the construction team asks for it? In my perspective, you don't just copy the CWP list and change the first letter to an E or a P and throw it into your spreadsheet as another field that you track against and call it that's it, you're done. And EWP it's data, and it's lots of it. It's tag information, it's drawing associations, it's BOM data, it's BOQ data, it's forecasted schedule, construction requirement dates. Within the industry, we've we know we've defined these AWP digital threads not to function just as another checklist item for each of the stakeholders to satisfy, but really to advance our ability to work towards that digital twin and make our projects and the realization of them better. And to echo Ted, I've heard the argument that AWP brings increased project costs to the engineer, but I think that's a little bit of BS. The data we use and surface is data and work that engineers already do or should do for a project. Engineers are smart. They work hard to produce this data and the deliverables needed on a project, so we just need to make it available and use it. AWP was created to better our projects and better our execution of them, make them safer, more efficient, on time, on budget, cleaner and greener. And you know, I'll challenge the people in the room. If this isn't what you're striving for, then you know, why are you here? What are we doing here? I can't tell you how excited I am, you know, to have partnered with an EP that wants to do it. They're a company that's embraced AWP and chosen to tackle the challenges head on. And Chiyoda has recognized the need to enhance their EPC competitiveness through AWP to boost EPC execution capabilities while improving work efficiency. And this is coming straight from some of their target statements. I welcome you to take a look at their digital EPC roadmap as they target a digital transformation very much in line with the spirit of what we previously mentioned. As we all know, one of the challenges is that there's not a singular source of data that satisfies the AWP digital threads. Together with Construct X, Borneo, and Workbox, Chiyoda has developed and implemented a solution that we're happy and very excited to share with you today. I'm actually we're riffing on this kind of personal, you know, challenges in the industry, what we've seen, and I'm gonna hand it off. There's another phone call coming in from Amin.
Ring.
Bring Amin in to speak.
Hello,
to his,
it's me.
From the work phase.
Yes. So further to what Aaron was mentioning, I'm coming with some experience from site. So in my past job, I was working with a constructor on site, trying to apply AWP. Now, from my past experience, our main challenge, I can say, was having the proper E&P deliverables. So as you can see, we used to, for example, receive the AWP packages as PDF documents, as you can see here in the slide, with some, excuse me, with some data and like all written in PDF files and PDF formats. This is one thing that we really suffered from, because to convert these documents to proper data that we can use for our CWPs and IWPs, this was challenging. We used to hire maybe operators to transfer this document, the PDF, into some data that we can use and use them for our IWPs and CWPs. That was challenging. Now, another challenge was, okay, sometimes we received some data, but not the proper data that we need for our IWPs and CWPs. And this might lead to a lot of issues in the execution of the construction job. Sometimes we had to, for example, go out of sequence and just go with whatever we have as E&P deliverables to be able to satisfy maybe our schedule and satisfy our S-curve. However, this was a very big challenge for us. So as a contractor, I believe we didn't need by then like those type of documents with cover pages. We actually needed the actual data, like what is in the AWP. We needed an actual 3D model. We needed the tags. We needed the BOM. We needed BOQs. So this type of data that we need for the construction. So Fernando, the next slide, please. Okay, so being said, the need of digital transformation approach and having those E&P requirements properly handed over to the contractor and being planned well. So the target was having an E&P dashboard. So this was the plan. So first, we need to have something accessible by the users over the web or at the mobile, so that the user can visually access the E&P deliverable status anytime, anywhere over the web. Then we have, of course, allow the drill down or multi-granular view of the data, like on the ABS level and field discipline or systems. Allow or facilitate the engineering team to manage required dates from construction against plan, forecast, actuals on EWP and PWP deliverables, having a 2D and 3D capability so that we can visualize our E&P readiness, support production assembly and issuance of digital EWPs to the construction JV partners, doing all those proper integrations among the data to have with capabilities of automated weekly and daily updates from Chiyoda project systems. And of course, having the proper log and identify, track, and cross-check validations. And of course, we needed a system that is easy to use, basically with the minimal of training. Next slide, Fernando, please. So the solution. The solution came is we partnered with Chiyoda, or Chiyoda partnered with Jovian entities, Construct X, Borneo, and Workbox to develop Workbox EPC module on top of Workbox Advanced, based on Chiyoda's big experience in E&P and Construct X being a lead consultant in AWP along with Borneo and Workbox. We had this solution, which is Workbox EPC. The main or the headlights of the solution are aggregate E&P data for AWP into digital, EWPs and PWPs, and get rid of the documents, the PDF documents that we used to hand over to the contractor, which sometimes they were useful, sometimes it was easy to handle. Support iterative path of construction development on the CWA, field disciplines, and CWP level, establish and set need dates on EP deliverables, as well as manage the plan, forecast, actual through innovative AWP time board. So we made this tool very easy to the engineering team to set and the construction readiness date or the construction need date on a time board like chart, so that it was easier to manage, plan, and forecast the actual dates. Then, of course, we had a tracker for our EWP and PWP deliverables per CWP, in terms of tags, BOQs, EP BOM, site BOM documents and drawings, PWP status, and workfront availabilities. And we had the capability of interactive 2D and 3D charts. So we had a plot plan that we can view the charts of the EWP readiness and PWP readiness on the 2D plot plan and on the 3D model. Also, we have a powerful easy search that we can search across several menus within EPC, and we have the easy tree to ease the navigation through large project data sets by PABS and FWBS. Next, Fernando, please. So with Chiyoda, we applied several use cases. I'll be talking about two, and we have several use cases upcoming throughout the pipeline. So the first use case we did on EPC module with Chiyoda is the timely AWP setup at the start of EP. We have the feature of defining CWAs, CWPs, EWPs, PWPs, and CRDs. And we have several types of, or several methods to view the data. For example, we have the CWP matrix, where we have some indications on counts of CWPs and quantities by BOQs, for example, and several other data views. And the other use case is managed digital EWP development towards EP readiness need dates for construction. So we have a menu within EPC which shows the EP readiness for the construction. Mainly here we are talking about the documents and drawings, materials, tags, PWPs, and the overall. And the third use case, more to come. We will announce it later. Okay, so next, Fernando, please.
So with these use cases,
So Aaron,
yeah. So with these use cases, we're in the midst of them now with more to come. But here's our what we're calling our breakthrough in digital EWP production control. We're applying lean and agile principles earlier in the project to be able to apply AWP into like a usable part of E&P. That was the challenge from the start, and as we're seeing from our use cases within the work with Chiyoda, what Chiyoda is experiencing, and I don't mean to call anyone out, but I see some of our colleagues actually in the attendees list here, is that we're finding this to prove real results. What we're seeing is debottlenecking vendor data delays. We're able to manage constraints. You know, you're typically seeing constraints at a CWP level or an IWP level, right? We're actually able to manage constraints, and they're seeing this at an EWP level across disciplines. And then in turn, that whole issue to construction, construction readiness, we're supporting that and through a review and approval process to issue EWPs digitally and streamline that process to construction. One more, Fernando. And to continue that, the benefits being realized are increased adherence to the AWP principles. Again, removing those bottlenecks. We're seeing a reduction in time and effort to actually deliver EWPs. You're not, again, we keep saying this, but you're not just chucking a PDF and a stack of requirements and drawings over the fence once the target date hits for construction. We're increasing accuracy because we're feeding back to the engineering group what we're seeing in the data and errors before it gets issued to construction, which is going to in turn decrease the change orders and the RFIs that are coming from the field, and we all know is delaying work and delaying the execution. Improved visibility. We are operating across the entire project lifecycle. We're starting all the way up with what we call 1D, grid view, list view, and then transitioning that into your 2D and 3D. That's adding layers and layers of data as your project progresses. We're calling this obviously a proactive planning approach, but it's still the designing with the end in mind concept that we're all familiar with, because your construction need dates are what's driving this. And actually, when we're setting those in the tool, we're working backwards and actually providing the dates that are satisfying those construction need dates. Obviously, this reduces time and cost to query and analyze how engineering is doing. You're not just hitting trying to deduce status on a colorized 3D model. You're actually looking at the data and seeing what state you're at and what is ready, what's not ready. And again, just to close, you're increasing schedule reliability and predictability because you're seeing it and you're starting it way up front earlier in the process as it applies to engineering and procurement, not just waiting until you're hitting IFC phases.
All right. Okay. So thank you, Amin and Aaron, and getting some, let's call it, next gen energy engaged in this area of AWP for me, and bringing on some entrepreneurial mindsets to take this vision and idea of, well, okay, if AWP started with production control in the field in the work-based planning arena, and now here's what we want engineering to produce, can't we apply those principles in? This has been monumentally based upon full leverage of the AWP Digital Threads, which was a combination of work, tipping the hat out to owners like Dow and Eastman and Shell and Exxon and others that were there at the table with the number of engineers and contractors to produce this fantastic artifact. But as the data says, here's what you need, there's also the magic of what are you going to do with it. And so, Fernando, go to the next slide, but I can't speak highly enough about this publication that we helped with producing, and the magic behind the scenes really being done by Borneo. So where for the users, it's that ease of use, give them something where they can actually use a 3D model and not limited to a 3D model, but 2D plans and path of construction to actually manage, truly manage, not just do engineering and produce the drawings and the various engineering deliverable specs, to actually manage the process, leveraging those digital threads and then being able to map the data coming from a multitude of systems. This is showing one of the flows that are run of what we call neo flows, where it's not just consuming the digital threads, but then applying them into within Borneo a next generation, not a data lake, but a delta lake, where scalability, and we're just hitting that tip of scalability around the whole point of, well, how would you rapidly consume it and not limit your processing to what's called vertical scalability, but as the data sets increase from mega projects into giga projects, having those data sets be managed in a Spark environment that allows for truly distributed processing in an Azure server in the cloud, but the business logic that sits on top to then take the digital threads that are the digital threads, if you're not aware, basically say, well, here's a type of data. It doesn't get prescriptive in saying here's some ISO specification that you must extremely follow with exact field names and attribution. It says coming out of a system like a 3D model, here's the type of data and here's what attributes should be in it to support it. Then you go down the various design systems and into the other project management systems, the detailing systems, the procurement systems, and the data feeding into procurement, and then taking that information spec and then doing something with it, the business logic, the combinatorial. It's not just simply taking the data and presenting it and making charts. It's the analysis of a series of EPC specific business logic to combine that data. Why? Because the path of engineering does not equate to the path of construction. I don't know how much that's really understood, but when we get into, well, if engineering would just do things in the order that construction needs it, that's not the way engineering works. Just like turnover follows, along systems, engineering has a systems basis, but it's not the same as commissioning. But it is also sprawling across areas, but nevertheless, deliverables need to be packaged to support construction, and by applying automation and helping to assemble that, and also perform not just a simple quality check of, is my attribute following the digital thread spec, but more importantly, doing a whole series of cross-validations. CWPs end up emanating in many of the design systems, into the procurement systems, and ultimately into the project management systems, the scheduling, and the estimating systems. And I believe that estimating part is a massive untapped potential, where a lot of AWP principles have applied to the sequencing and the alignment of the sequencing of the work, but getting those estimates broken down ultimately in those BOQs by CWP has big advantage. And then there's an alignment where you need to then align that engineering view of the work breakdown structure of how these CWPs are initially defined, within a phased handover to contractors where their work breakdown structure isn't necessarily exactly lined up with the way you want to track and plan the work, and you've applied your CWPs in engineering. And so having this next generation data orchestration engine, not as under the ground plumbing of just any orchestration tool, but very specific business logic to the EPC industry, is what enables the magic of where we are and where we're going with EPC. I'll apologize up front where we've been unable to show a lot of the detailed screenshots, but quite frankly, we've got something special. We've got something magic here. It feels like the days of when we built that first piping 3D work package in 2001 and said, wow, there's something here. And suddenly the foremen were building it. I feel like we're now at this tipping point in the industry where AWP principles, and I believe we're just at that journey. And hats off to the Chiyoda team, because it could not have been done without an engineer who wanted to make it work and wanted to use AWP in the right way. Lots more to do. The feedback back to the engineering teams that are advancing their data sets, where CWPs are misaligned, where data may be misaligned, where tags don't line up, where the tag should line up into the document into the CWPs. Helping do that is a fundamental aspect of the design architecture and really what makes it work. But it's the magic that happens behind the scenes, and we've now demonstrated that it's applicable and can be taken from one project into another with minimal configuration, which again is largely due to full leverage of the AWP Digital Threads. Next slide.
So what we we wanted to grab some pertinent quotes that from some of the users and people who have seen and interacted with the tool, it's served as inspiration and made us push and drive a little bit more and a little bit more. Mogami-san, who I think is with us today, says the vision of leveraging the 3D design model as a project management tool has now been realized. Finally, right? We're there. It's not just a design tool. We're using it for connecting on a project. We're seeing it. It's not just something that's subject to a design model review, but rather a usable tool in our toolkit. Amin, I don't know if we're handing off here.
Yes, so user at a major EPC organization also said good things happen to those who work package early. So working on a work package the earliest and having everything ready at an early stage is what makes it or breaks it. So.
And I'll take the next one. I'll take the next one. It was, I love the quote. I'm not going to say who said it, but upon touching work pack, said this is next level explicit in AWP, and that was it was one of the fondest quotes. I put it next level capability in AWP. A user at a major owner operator getting these visuals surfaced, and again making it so that you can just touch a screen and it works so well up on a 50+ inch monitor with a touch screen where you just click on your plot plan, drill down, and get to detailed information without having to spend a lot of time to become how do I become a 3D model jockey or have to bring one in to get to the data I want.
The last one being, and I'll jump back in, the last one being sort of an admittance of sorts. Workpacks, it's making it hard to hide our actual production numbers, right? We're actually getting in there and showing the real data and asking the right questions. It's no longer a percent complete on a report saying we're 85% complete for this EWP. This is real stuff. These are real numbers. We're seeing it. We're seeing the data. We're connecting the data. We're really putting it up there and showing you what is it that is 85% complete, or rather, more likely, 45% complete.
And yeah, I'm gonna jump in on that quote too, because having lived this journey of AWP from the earliest days in late 1990s. I think it was a shock to a number of people who I was personally engaged with, where, going back to John Fish and, the seminal work with the CII Breakthrough Strategy Committee that spun out of CII, spun up FIATech. I was still at NASA, got engaged in a cooperative research and development agreement with the National Institute of Standards on, I quickly realized if you're going to build detailed installation packages, you need the details. So we worked hard on getting structural steel detailing data into a virtual environment where you could click on it. We got the spooling data into the virtual environment so I could get that detailed data into this virtual construction model. But the point being, the owners that sponsored that, it was absolutely sponsored by some forward-looking owners who were attempting to adopt the digital twin as late back as 20 plus years ago in the late 1990s, and they found that the ironic part is software has a life cycle of 10 years, but plants live 50. And so if the software keeps switching, and I just bring a 3D model into a plant and I'm not using it, it gets bit rot. And so they were looking for a way of saying, how can we use this? Whatever happened to the plastic model? But the point is, whereas they thought the engineers that were deep into tools like, pioneering tools like PACE that then, led into the PDMS, and you can put those attributes into the model. It wasn't like somehow the models only got smart recently. The design systems had smarts long time ago. It was like, how do you use that data? But the thing is, there was I believe a common misperception that whereas the engineers would embrace it, the constructors, they've got hard hats, they're not going to want it. It was the exact opposite. The first experiences were the constructors, especially that superintendent and general foreman and down to the foreman level. They said, wow, I can see what spools are on site. Wow. What we found was that that level, visibility is not always a good thing, unfortunately. You think it is. We found a lot of the engineers push back. I mean, even on the first project was heaven. I'm not going to name the names that were involved, but the engineer and the constructors, it was really an owner engineer, and they wanted to make it happen and they participated. The next ones we found, oh, wow, you look at an isometric production curve, and if we're paying out to the engineer by drawing production, just because you issued a bunch of utility pipe and then you're going to come back and revise it later, it may look like you're 30% and ready to start, getting the pipe spools ready on an offshore platform that's a fast track project, and we proved that you have revision management. That's a key part to that secret sauce at the Borneo level, is how do you control this, and how do you keep the drawing revisions in sync with the data and the model revisions? But coming back to the point, we found that a lot of the engineering community was like running for the hills, because suddenly putting the spotlight on where engineering and procurement was, we found the constructors running out to adopt, with the engineers kind of backing off saying, whoa, do I really want to have that level of visibility? And now, let's make it really clear on that last quote. In no way is this intended to say, hey, that's going to now give the engineering and the EPC and the project management a tool to beat up the contractors. It's about getting the right people with the right mindset and getting our project teams in our industry to realize that, production of digital data, we're paying out as if we're still in a world of the 1970s producing drawings, and we're going to pay out by drawings, and getting the incentives proper so that we can benefit from alignment, we can benefit from visibility, both in the engineering phase, and have engineers embrace this and not look at it as a way of saying, oh, I can add more money to doing a project because I'm going to support AWP. AWP principles of production control can help streamline the whole project, and visibility can be good, but we've got to figure out with the right owners in the room and in the AWP community, how do we get the incentives aligned between the stakeholders so that everyone picks up the benefits across the supply chain on the projects. We stop looking at it from one benefit. The benefit of one stakeholder means the detriment of another. So I'm really excited about us being at this turning point in the industry, Fernando. I think you can appreciate that too, especially with your deep knowledge of integrated project delivery techniques that ideally could get stakeholders better aligned. And whether we call it IPD or not, that type of incentivization of the stakeholders and alignment across the stakeholders is key.
Yeah, once you understand the reality of the true situation and the ugly underbelly of it, then you can start working on the actual problem and come up with real solutions, rather than sweeping things under the rug and producing really nicely looking reports that that are old and don't reflect the reality of what's going on in the field or in the office. Okay, so I'd like to thank you so much, Ted. That was really enlightening. We've lived through a lot together, that's for sure. I do want to reintroduce Ryan, our CIO, the CIO of Workbox. We're very, very proud of this. So Ryan, I'll let you go ahead and talk.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando. And Before I get into this announcement, I would like to. I think here where I am, it's time for storytelling. This is the time where I tell stories to my kids. So I thought to my son. So I thought it's good to rewrap what our team of very smart people. It's very hard to add something to anything which was said. So as they were talking, I was thinking, what should I add? But I'll tell the small story. Like I was 23 years old, and when I graduated in artificial intelligence and image recognition and processing, last thing I thought of was working in the field of construction. I thought I might send a rover to Mars and drive it and apply this artificial intelligence and virtual reality to drive it on Mars or many other planets. What I didn't realize is that there were two thinkers whose roadmaps were meant to meet, and my journey started. 25 years of my journey was into the construction industry. When I started with construction and ended up with TED happens to start on Mars and end up back on Earth, trying to really make it a better place, and starting with the most miserable industry, excuse my word, and the industry that is making the most of waste. But it's true. And back to when I started, I used to ask questions that sounded stupid to my fellow people in the construction, and they sounded like stupid. How comes you start building something without the design being ready? And I was looked at like I was 23 years old. I didn't know much. I also recall and it's really a changing. It shows how much the industry changed. I had my first trip to Japan when I was 27. And guess why? I was trying to convince, I was 27 years old, and I went into a room. I was trying to convince people with a lot of experience with white hair why somebody working for a construction company needs the 3D model. And they were investigating me and thinking that we are trying to copy their designs. And nobody believed why I need the construction model at this point. And look where we are today. We are today where the engineering and procurement company, not any, Chiyoda, were not only contributing, but driving and leading. And this experience over the past 1 year was really, it gave me personally a degree of satisfaction and a push to continue. Because at one point, maybe 2 years ago, I said, I don't want to work for this industry anymore. This is an industry that refuses to change. Now back to EPC in specific and to Workbox Advanced. When I joined Workbox Advanced is really a platform, and it was so much advanced and ahead of all its competitors when it comes to the conventional advanced work packaging. And when we started on EPC, I felt like this is the next big thing. Now, in summary also, if I want to tell you about EPC, there's one thing that was said there, but maybe it was not made very clear. It's not about engineering and procurement readiness. It's about data readiness. The whole process and the easy and nice looking and lovable interfaces in EPC and in Workbox Advanced, what they allow you to see is to even see data discrepancies, which are okay. At the beginning, I had problems with the developers trying to explain to the developers that those are not bugs or problems. This is how the data is coming. And when you're trying to integrate data coming from different data sources, there's no way you will not have data discrepancy. And the strong thing is to show those discrepancies, which are automatically collected from different data sources over the cloud using Amazon Web Service S3, and it's coming from over the cloud and connecting to all those systems over the cloud, something which you used to do 20 years ago in the enterprise, is today happening. And I think why it took so long to happen, because I repeat something that one of my most favorite people who worked in the industry, construction industry said, has it been easy? Someone else would have done it before us. This is not easy, gentlemen, but And I realized this is not something where we can show and tell about the software, but reach to us and we'll show more details and you will connect to what I'm saying and to what the team said. Thank you, team, and thank you for hearing me out.
All right. Thank you, Ron. That was very heartfelt. That was special. So thank you. It's the first time I heard that story. So yeah, so we want to thank all our presenters here, Dr. Ted Blackman, Rayan, Amin, and Aaron. And we want to give a special shout out, a special thanks to our friends out of Chiyoda, who really, without them, none of this would have come together the way it did. So it was a special to have them on board and very interactive and very engaged with us. So so with that, we've got a few minutes left. If you would like to give us some questions, you know, please put them in the chat window or in the question box, and we'll start looking at them. And any rate, if you want to see more about Workbox EPC, please reach out to Ryan, and you reach out to any of us on the call on this presentation. So I got some here. I wanted to ask, maybe this was covered, but can one of you speak to the revisions that occur in engineering and design? Assuming that's you know, how do you manage that? But that's something, Ted, you can speak to.
It goes back to like understanding what the change is and having the business logic in place to appropriately buffer out iterative design revisions versus process changes that trigger scope changes in engineering, and then having the proper business logic that understands the issue for construction process. As we move towards ultimate elimination of paper, it doesn't eliminate that design is iterative and we're going to partially and incrementally issue, and whether those issuances are by labor work packages of bundled CWPs, by an EWP, or you're traditionally just issuing drawings at a time. Once that goes into an issue state, work and other plans have now committed against that. And so having the change engine appropriately manage that, and you've got to have well-defined control lists and a tool. You know, and I'll throw out wave a flag around Aviva Engineering as being one of the great tools. Then really give a control list over your various engineering tags, and then how do you leverage data coming out of that? And whether you're using Excel lists as your control list or something else, you got to have that identified and tied into your document management system as a correlated business process workflow.
All right, great, thanks. Another one looks like something for Ryan, almost just covered a little bit. With data coming from multiple sources, how does the system handle data discrepancies?
Yes, you know, it's what EPC gives you is an iterative process to go over revisions and revisions of your data, and then seeing the discrepancies. Some of them will be automatically fixed, but the most important is that doing those iterations and tackling discrepancies, and the aggregation of the data on the plot plan or on the 3D model or even in a matrix or even in a table will allow you to see the discrepancies easily. Something which normally, if you wait until you issue for construction and if you wait until they are discovered by your contractor, this will take a lot of back and forth, delays, problems, and you'll discover them when it's too late. So it is by design, EPC is to handle those discrepancies.
Yeah. Okay, I see a specific question that may be regarding that as well. Engineering involves with many hold information on drawings. How can EPC control those that hold information?
And it goes back to the digital threads and the fact that a hold may come from engineering, a hold may come from the vendor, a hold may come from, you know, even the construction input where a query initiated a hold in terms of something being discrepant. And so being able to process those holds and bring them in, and I believe it's an area that is a valid, difficult question, but you've got to aggregate and bring those holds into a centralized control system, where then those holds and the impact of the hold, because if we believe, well, I got to have a CWP 100% before I start construction, you haven't lived on the projects I've lived on. It's a matter of then saying these larger CWPs drive the engineering priorities, but then I iterate and I find out, even if I've got a hold, does it the entire CWP, and I shouldn't build early if it doesn't make sense, Or do I come in and subdivide and iterate, and I don't change my EPC baseline schedule of the CWPs, but I allow the workfront buffers to become visible and see the impact of those holds on workfront visibility. But a key is aggregating them across, which goes back to the ensuring that the holds can come from multiple data sources and multiple stakeholders.
Wow, that's great. Probably also with EPC, it would help in being able to prioritize these types of environments where holds are and working on the right things at the right time.
So I'm going to add to that, Fernando, and say that
Okay.
holds within the system, ask yourself the question, do you typically receive a hold on an entirety of an EWP, or are you actually getting granular about what that hold applies to? So Ted mentioned like the effect on a CWP, but if you have the data loaded, you know exactly the tag numbers in EPC that hold impacts. You know exactly the CWP, exactly the EWP, and maybe it doesn't actually impact down to, when we talk construction, down to the IWP level, because it's not something that puts on hold the entirety of an EWP package. It's maybe one or two drawings that are affected, right? So the granularity with that hold, then the visibility that we load down into the tool, you can. It's not just a blanket statement, hold on this EWP, hold on this CWP. You can get really granular and see exactly what it's affecting.
Yeah, and you can't expect the data to magically resolve the collaborative process of then the team coming together and identifying what is the impact of that hold and then making the right decisions around escalations, and just sometimes issues need to be addressed. And so let's just make sure that it's clear that, and we're not suggesting something odd. You got to have processing on top of those digital threads. The digital threads by themselves say what type of data can be produced, but the business logic to do something with it, that's not open source. And frankly, the idea that the data is going to just solve it all, becomes a collaborative process, and in providing engineering with that production management collaboration environment to identify what to do, and also to more collaboratively bring in, if a constructor is building here, have the Workbox IWP builder from a constructor interface with the Workbox EPC, so that those collaborative relationships, the idea that everybody's going to be building off of just one single model on a cloud is a fallacy. It's a data exchange process around concerns of access, but driving transparency is key. But it's a fallacy to think it's all going to be just shared in one big data model in a cloud.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question. I think this one maybe goes to Amin. How did this partnership and use case approach with Workbox EPC compare to other tools and approaches you've experienced on previous projects? Is that Amin?
Sorry, Fernando, can you repeat the question? I had a very bad internet connection and I couldn't, it was intermittent.
Yeah, all the way from Dubai. How could that be?
What happens when you're out in the field?
Yeah. How did this partnership and use case approach with Workbox EPC compare to other tools and approaches you've experienced on previous projects?
Yes, so the good thing about this partnership with Chiyoda is that partnership are leaders in the industry in terms of engineering and procurement, and they helped us develop this solution. Or compared to other solutions like on the market, I can see that EPC, at least from my previous experience till today, the first thing, it's very easy to use and it requires minimal training. That's one. Number two, the way that EPC shows the data or views the data is very indicative and very clear. Like having, for example, a plot plan with summary of CWPs or BOQs per CWA on a plot plan is something very, very useful. And from my previous experience as well, in many projects, we didn't have, for example, the 3D model. So having a plot plan where we can do all our demarcation on the plot plan, planning and forecasting and seeing charts on the plot plan is something very new and very, it's not, I didn't see it in any of my previous experience with other solutions. So I believe those are the main powers of EPC compared to other solutions.
Okay.
And I can kind of build upon that. Necessity is the mother of invention, and having engineers that really are committed to making AWP work and know what challenges. I mean, they're not just participating as users. Let's be very clear. They drove the requirements based upon what they needed the job done. And that has made this product something that just I cannot speak highly enough about. Is it coming from the need of engineers who understand what they need to see and what they want to see. And there's going to be a lot more to come of that with this partnership.
Yeah, and that's why it was called a use case. Let's define the use first, and then we'll develop the solution. So great, thank you so much. All right, we are at the top of the hour. I think thank you all for attending. It's been a great, very honored to be able to present this team to you and share our experience with Chiyoda. So have a great rest of the conference.
And thank you to Chiyoda for allowing us to bring this to the industry.
Yes, thank you so much. Shout out to Chiyoda for sure. Thank you, everybody. And with that, I'll go ahead and end this presentation. Right?